Hello, my MGTOW brothers. It's been a while, but this is going to be my last word on Elliot Rodger, and I'm going to move on to other things, more important things. Well, I wouldn't say more important, but other things. I've been saying from day one that the main culprit behind Elliot Rodger's rampage was the psychotropic drugs. You can't ignore the pattern. You know, it was there before he came about, 20 years before he came about, and it's still around. And the pharmaceutical companies that make billions off of this stuff keep trying to downplay the role that these drugs play in these incidents. But I'm reading in the Daily Mail that Elliot Rodger's addiction to Xanax and Vicodin played a role in this particular case, which is something that I've said from day one. And now it's coming out. It has nothing to do with him being a misogynist, which he was. It has nothing to do with MRA, which he wasn't. It has nothing to do with MGTOW, which he wasn't. He was on Asperger. He was an Asperger's syndrome kid, and they were trying to control it with medication. And sometimes, that side effect of these particular medications, this is what happens. He's a little hand grenade that the pin slipped out of, as I said in my last video. Don't believe me? A week later, down in Mission Viejo, a young man, 21-year-old Michael Shear, took a shotgun, killed his mother, his father, and his sister, and then took his own life. Those of you who are not familiar with Mission Viejo, those of you not from California are not familiar with Mission Viejo. It's a upscale, very wealthy community in southern Orange County. Mission Viejo has this reputation for being very wealthy, very safe, and very upscale. A lot of $1 million homes. And they are squashing this story. They don't want it to get out that one of their own could do something like this. Great family, Christian background, mother homeschooled them, who are part of for their early education. Mother and father did prison ministry, that kind of stuff. One of the choir boys or poster boys for Mission Viejo could actually go out and commit something like this. It doesn't suit well for Mission Viejo's image. They don't want to admit that the stuff that they're shoving down these little boys' throats to control them can come back to haunt them. They're even calling this kind of stuff the boy next door syndrome, where you got millions and millions of these boys on this alphabet soup for ADHD, supposedly ADHD. The state of California gets a lot of money for doing this kind of stuff and feeding this kind of stuff to these children. And now, what did Malcolm X say? The chickens are coming home to roost. If that's not enough for you, a week after that, up in Seattle, Washington, another young man, 21-year-old Aaron Ybarra, who had mental issues and most likely had been medicated for it as a child, got off of this stuff, and he was trying to self-medicate himself with alcohol, which he had been in treatment for. He had been already hospitalized twice for mental issues, but he was deemed not a threat. So what does he do? What happened? He walks into Seattle Pacific University and Fortunately, he only killed one person and wounded two, and the hall monitor, heroic hall monitor, maced him and tackled him to the ground and held him until school officials could respond and subdue him. So that tells you, you have these little hand grenades going off in number now. The frequency is starting to increase. They're calling this the boy next door syndrome. You don't know. You have all these potential people that have potential problems, and you don't know when it's going to, when these little pins are going to fall out and it's going to blow up. If that's not enough for you, the next week in Portland, Oregon, 14-year-old boy, Jared Paget, walks into his school with a AR-15 assault rifle, a 9mm, and 400 rounds of ammunition. Walks into a locker room, kills one boy, wounds a teacher, and fortunately, the teacher was able to escape and lock down the school and call the police. 14-year-old Jared avoided the police, walked into a bathroom, and put a gun to his head and committed suicide. So what we have is two incidences that are near misses. What they said with Aaron Ybarra, he had enough ammunition to kill at least 50 to 60 people. And he was in the midst of reloading when the hall monitors maced him and subdued him. Otherwise, what would happen would have made what Aaron Rodger did look like a picnic, look like amateur hour. If this teacher didn't respond and lock down the school, you'd have had another Sandy Hook with 20 to 30 students dead. This kid was loaded for bear. Assault rifle, 9mm, 400 rounds of ammunition. Come on. And we sit here and we pretend like this has to do with male privilege. This has something to do with the patriarchy. This has something to do with MRA. I don't know what people across the pond think about it or what people in other countries think about it. Well, here in America, we know what the hell the problem is because we see this happen to our school kids every day. The only reason you don't see more statistics is because, thank God, most of these boys who are males project this stuff inward like it's a problem with them. And that's why the suicide rate for boys, teenage boys, is so high now. You put them on this stuff. You give them a feminized education. You tell them they're nothing. You tell them that they're rapists. You tell them that they're child molesters. You tell them that they're sexual predators. You tell them that they're less than girls, that they'll never be anything. They can't, they're not fit for college. They're not fit to work for work. And as a mule or a provider, you're useless. So if you're not an alpha male, if you don't have a six-pack, you don't have crystal blue eyes, you don't have high cheekbones, and you're not 6'2", then you don't measure up, son. Drop out. Go get an Xbox. Get you a carton of Cheetos and sit there in your mama's basement and contemplate the rest of your life, because that's where you're going to be. So rather than jumping into the abyss or looking at the abyss and staying on the edge for the rest of their lives, what do? They take the easy way out. And some of them take other people with them. What if every boy that's put a gun to his head and committed suicide decided that, it'd be more fun to take other people with me? How many people would you find up being dead? How many Aaron Rodgers would you find? How many Aaron Rodgers would you see? Multiply it by 10. Maybe multiply it by 100. Stop debating about this silly crap that we call this, what we call it in America, Monday morning quarterbacking. Get on the field, do something. Now, I suggest if little girls want to learn the way they want to learn, and they're afraid of little boys because little boys are going to touch them, little boys are going to kiss them, little boys are going to potentially rape them, and female teachers are going to potentially pick on them. Separate them. Let's have same-sex classrooms again. Kick the feminists the hell out of the classroom with little boys. Raise them to be little boys. If those games are too rough and too violent for little girls, put little girls in another area where they can play little girl games. Let little boys be little boys. Let them learn the way they can learn. Put shop classes back into the school. Set up universities that don't have women. So you don't have to worry about rape culture. You don't have to worry about misogyny being on campus. You don't have to worry about male privilege. You don't have to worry about little girls being, your little princesses being raped on campus. Put them in another campus. Put boys in another campus. Yeah, they're going to bellyache because there's no girls around, but so what? Maybe that's a good thing. But probably what they're afraid of, that you're going to have a lot of little MGTOWs, men going their own way, that don't include the opinions and the impressions of women anymore. That's what feminists are afraid of. They're afraid of that we finally got these little boys where we want them. We finally got them under control. We finally got the proper medication where we can keep the majority of little boys under control, and we don't want to give it up. There was a school district in the Midwest. I think it was Milwaukee. It might have been Detroit, but I think it was Milwaukee, that did a pilot program where they had an all-boy classroom, and they saw the grades and the outcomes of little boys skyrocket. So they suggested just as an experiment to have an all-boys school in the district. Do you know every feminist in the country came out against that? That is unfair to women if you separate the classroom, if you take little boys away from little girls, which is the dumbest idea I've ever freaking heard in my life. It shows you that women and feminists really don't care about boys and men. They only care about what's good for them and the power that they can acquire from the government. And it shows by using this story and spreading this disinformation, which they know it's not true. They know it's not true, that they're willing to use any tactic, fair or unfair, to get what they want. And that's my last word on Elliot Rodger.